In this episode of Biblical Unlocks, we will go through a chapter of the Bible and make it make sense in your life today. Studies routinely show that reading your Bible regularly significantly lowers symptoms of depression, anxiety, and anger, whilst also increasing forgiveness, compassion, and a sense of purpose. So if you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Biblical Unlocks. Today we're going to go through Genesis 30. So we're 30 chapters into Genesis, and we're going to go through Genesis 30, see all of the biblical unlocks we can uncover, and afterwards we'll try and apply it in our everyday life. This particular chapter has got family conflict, it's got a whole heap of different things which are important to see, and we're going to at least try and understand how we can apply this in our daily life, especially because God is going to continue to expand Jacob's family, and he's going to have more children. There's a rivalry between the sisters because of the problem from last time. Remember, there was the fact that Leah and we have Rachel, who are both married to Jacob, right? Because Laban deceived Jacob by substituting Leah under the bridal veil. So I feel like this chapter in the Bible also indicates something important, which is the fact that polyamorous relationships are by nature competitive, and it should not be it's definitely not encouraged by any means. Okay, let's read Genesis chapter 30. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister, and she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob became very angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld you from the fruit of the womb?" Then she said, "Here is my maid, Bilhah. Go into her, so that she may bear upon my knees, and that I too may have children through her." So she gave her maid Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her, and Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me, and has also heard my voice, and given me a son." Therefore she named him Dan. Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and have prevailed." So she named him Naphtali. Okay, so clearly Rachel is envious of Leah. And I want you to think about how sometimes we try to force God's blessings when it's like forcing a circle-shaped toy into the triangle-shaped depression of its corresponding part. You shouldn't be trying to force things that just are not required, or are not in God's timing or in God's plan, right? We see this again here. Rachel envies Leah's fertility, and she obviously demands children, or she says that she will die. But does this not remind us of Hagar and Sarah in Genesis 16? How Sarah was impatient, and then because of this, Abraham went into Hagar and bore children, and so on and so forth. Bilhah bears Dan, which means he has judged, and Naphtali, which means my wrestling, which again shows Rachel is very competitive. But this is not a good kind of competition. I feel like there is no good type of competition now that I think about it, because competition is always like, I'm trying to do better than you, I'm trying to match you. And we read something in the Bible in James chapter 3 verse 16. So if we read James chapter 3 verse 16, what do we see? James chapter 3 verse 16 says, For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. So we can see here that competitiveness, we see that selfish ambition, envy, this is going to create disorder, and this is exactly what we're seeing. Okay, next, verse 9 to 13. Oh, sorry, verse 9 to 21. Let's read all the way down to 21. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, "Good fortune." So she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, "Happy am I, for the women will call me happy." So she named him Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "Then he may lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night, and God heeded Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has given me my hire, because I gave my maid to my husband." So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good gift. Now my husband will honor me, because I have borne him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter and named her Dinah. Okay, so essentially what happens, Leah gives Zilpah to Jacob, producing Gad, which means good fortune, and Asher, which means happy. And then later Leah bears Issachar, Zebulun, and Dinah. So she continues naming children as prayers to God, even though she feels unloved, because obviously Jacob was in love with Rachel and whatnot. I just want to read a psalm just to illustrate the point that even though you're brokenhearted, God is close to you. Why? Because we literally see in Psalm chapter 34 verse 18 that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. So even when you feel brokenhearted, even when you feel God is not heeding your cries, remember that's your thoughts telling you that, because in Psalm chapter 34 verse 18 we read that God is close to the brokenhearted. Okay, mandrakes. We saw that mandrakes were thought to mandrakes. What are mandrakes? People don't really understand what mandrakes are, so I'll provide you a little bit of a backstory. Mandrakes are a type of plant. Okay, they're a type of plant, and they have man-shaped roots. That's why they're called mandrakes. Okay, now the mandrake in the ancient Near East was actually thought to promote fertility. Okay, and Rachel actually trades a night with Jacob for them. So that is to say that she literally trades places with Leah, because Leah has got some mandrakes. So she's like, okay, I want the mandrakes, but you get to sleep with my husband. That's crazy. Again, just want to point out something important. Just because something happens in the Bible does not mean it is prescribed. In fact, there are a lot of instances in the Bible where God, like, we see something occurring in the Bible, that is to say, something which is not necessarily moral, right? But it does not necessarily mean that that is permitted or that God wants this thing to happen, because it is more to illustrate to us the consequences, the natural consequences of our actions. Okay, let's read first. Okay, we're going to read verses 22 onwards. Then God remembered Rachel, and God heeded her, and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she named him Joseph, saying, May the Lord add to me another son. You see, God remembered Rachel. It's interesting because we read again in 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 19 to 20. We always try to get things on our own accord. We always try to fix things according to our plan. But we read in 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 19 to 20. They rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. In due time Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, I have asked him of the Lord. The truth is, and as we see, God is the one who makes, who gives life, okay? So it's not human schemes, but rather God who directs all precepts, okay? So that's the important thing to remember in this particular instance. Okay, let's read from verses 25 to 43. When Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me away, so that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know very well the service that I have given you. But Laban said to him, If you will also allow me to say to you, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages, and I will give it. Jacob said to him, You yourself know that how I have served you, and how your livestock have fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also? He said, What shall I give you? Jacob said, You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again feed your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and such shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later, when you come to look into my wages with you. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen. Laban said, Good, let it be as you have said. But that day Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob, whilst Jacob was pasturing the rest of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took fresh rods of poplar and almond, and plain and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the rods. He set the rods that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, in the watering places, where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, the flocks bred in front of the rods. And so the flocks produced young that were striped, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped and the completely black animals in the flock of Laban. And he put his own droves apart, and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob laid in the rods, and in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, so that they might breed among the rods. But for the feebler of the flock he did not lay them there. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man grew exceedingly rich, and had large flocks, and male and female slaves, and camels and donkeys. Okay, so what do we see? Jacob has impressive shrewdness here. And it's interesting because Jacob makes a deal with Laban and uses striped rods at watering rods. And it is interesting because his little method that he's done here, if you put the rods here, then they'll do something. It seems quite superstitious, right? But God blesses Jacob's flocks abundantly. It's not these superstitious rods or whatever that is causing this, all of this. Remember that God is the ultimate provider, and his plan is the ultimate authority over all other superstitious beliefs and whatnot. Okay, I just want to see something, or tell you something. In the next chapter, that when we read Genesis chapter 31 verse 12, it's actually going to be a clarification regarding this, that it wasn't these superstitious beliefs that actually increased the flock abundantly. It was actually God who gave Jacob the vision and increase, not his own schemes. So, the important thing is, Jacob, who is the deceiver in this case, is actually learning that true increase comes from God's covenant blessing, not manipulation. And we see this over and over and over and over and over and over and over in Genesis, that you try and do things your way, you end up more miserable, then God has to come in to save you. Then we had the same thing with Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and Abraham and Hagar and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob and Leah and Rachel. All of these people, every single one of them have done this, even with Rebecca. All of this, it's the same thing. We also had Esau. We also had, so again, Jacob and Esau, right? So we have the same thing going over and over and over again. You try and do things off your own accord. You try and take things into your own hands, and this is what happens. God doesn't say, do it all yourself. He says, give it to me. But we try to do everything ourselves. When we try and envy others. And when we envy others, again, you don't thank God for his unique plan for you. You try and envy what others have, but they are a part of another plan. That's God's providence that they've had on someone else. And envy comes when you don't believe that God can bless you in the same way that God is blessing everyone else. So do you envy others? So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help you keep up your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. I upload daily, so if you don't want to miss tomorrow's episode, feel free to rate the show and follow. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And always remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.